Welcome back, data enthusiasts, ready to dive deep into the world of retail's data warehousing.
Absolutely. It's fascinating stuff.
Imagine having like this massive library, but instead of books, it's all your sales data organized and ready to analyze.
Exactly. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about understanding what makes your business tick. Your customers, your products, those stores.
Right? It's like getting the full picture. And our guidebook for this journey is the Data Warehouse Toolkit. This book is a classic. We're going to be focusing on the retail sales chapter.
Yeah, they really lay out a clear roadmap in that chapter, kind of a step-by-step process to build a data
And they
warehouse,
call it
a dimensional model.
a dimensional model. Okay. So step one.
Step one is select the business process.
Okay. So we're not trying to do everything at once.
You got it. Start with one specific area, like your point of sale transactions, really helps you focus on the data you need and those questions you're trying to answer.
Don't get lost in the weeds.
Exactly.
Okay, so step two is declare the grain. Now that sounds a bit technical. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, it is a bit jargony, but it's super important. Grain refers to the level of detail. Are we tracking each item someone scans at the checkout? Or are we looking at daily sales totals for the whole store?
So it's like choosing the zoom level on a map. Big picture versus stream level detail.
Exactly. And that decision impacts how you can analyze everything later on.
Right, so if you pick a grain that's too broad, you might miss out on some crucial insights.
Definitely, you want those details. Now, this leads us to step three.
Hit me with step three.
Identify the dimensions.
Dimensions, okay.
Think of these as like filters, different lenses you can use to view your data. So you've got your date, product, store, maybe a promotion, even the cashier who ran up the sale. These are all potential dimensions.
So it's like adding more search filters to find exactly what you're looking for.
Exactly. You can analyze sales by any of those characteristics. And then finally, you have step four, identify the facts.
Okay, lay those facts on me.
This is where you decide what you're actually measuring. Sales quality, the price, any discounts, costs, those are the numbers that tell the story of your business.
Right, so the facts are like the raw ingredients and the dimensions are like, what is it, the spices and the sauces.
I like that analogy, and this is where the real magic of data warehousing comes in. This data is organized in a very specific way using what's called a dimensional model. Imagine you have a central table, it's the fact table, and it's surrounded by these smaller tables called dimension tables.
So it's like a solar system with the fact table as the sun and the dimension tables as the planets.
Yeah, kind of. The fact table holds all those measurable facts. Each row in that table represents a single sale, and then the columns, they link out to more details about that sale in the dimension tables.
Okay, I'm starting to see the structure here. It's like a giant spreadsheet, right? Each row is a sale, and all the columns give you all the specific info about that sale.
Right, exactly.
But what about those dimension tables? What do they do?
They provide the context. They answer those questions like what product was sold, in which store, on what date, was there a promotion running?
Uh-huh. So the fact table gives you the what, and the dimension tables give you the who, when, where, why, and how. Got it.
Exactly. And by separating them into these different tables, it makes it incredibly efficient. You don't have to repeat all that info for every single sale.
Makes total sense. Organization is key. Now, you mentioned some specific dimensions that are pretty common in these retail setups.
Almost every data warehouse you see is going to have a date dimension, because sales change over time.
Of course. Like, do sales spike on weekends? Or during certain months? Or holidays?
Exactly. That's the kind of stuff you want to know. So the date dimension includes all those attributes, the day of the week, the month, the quarter, the year, even holidays.
So no more manually calculating fiscal periods and all that jazz. That sounds like a huge time saver.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Then you have the product dimension. This one describes like every product you sell in detail.
So we're talking brand, category, size, like every little detail about those products.
Exactly. This lets you slice and dice your sales by any of those characteristics. You could see which brands are performing well, if certain size is more popular, or if maybe changing the packaging impacted sales. There are tons of possibilities.
I'm already starting to feel like I have superpowers. What about the store dimension?
So this one captures all the characteristics of each store, the location, size, the layout, anything that might influence sales.
Interesting. You could see if a certain store layout leads to more impulse buys or something.
Exactly. And then, of course, you can't forget about promotions.
Right, promotions. Gotta love a good sale.
The promotion dimension describes all the different types of promotions you run: discounts, ads, displays, loyalty programs, the whole shebang.
Okay, but what about all the sales that aren't tied to a promotion?
Ah, good question. The promotion dimension usually has like a special row to identify those no promotion sales, keeps things tidy in the data.
No data gremlins allowed. Now, you also mentioned these things called degenerate dimensions. What are those all about?
So those are things like your transaction numbers or invoice numbers. They're captured, but they don't have their own dimension table.
So they're kind of like tags grouping individual sales within a transaction. Why wouldn't they get their own table?
They just don't really have any descriptive attributes that we need for analysis. They're just identifiers.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And then we have the mysterious factless fact tables. I'm still a little fuzzy on those.
They track events or relationships, but without actual measurements. Imagine a table showing which products were on promotion, even if they didn't actually sell.
So why track something that didn't happen?
Sometimes what doesn't happen is just as important as what does. Maybe that promotion just didn't resonate with customers. That's valuable information.
Aha. It's all about getting that complete picture. I like it.
And these tables usually include a dummy fact to make things easier for reporting, like a promotion count with a value of 1 for each product on promotion.
Clever workaround. Now let's talk about the different types of facts you can measure. We've already talked about additive facts like sales quantity, right?
Yeah, those are the easy ones. You can sum them up across any dimension.
But I bet there are other types that aren't so simple.
Right. You also have non-additive facts, like the unit price or percentages. You can't just directly add those up.
So how would you analyze something like average unit price across a bunch of different products and promotions?
You'd need to sum up the total sales and then divide by the total quantity sold.
Okay, so you got to be a little more careful with those non-additive facts.
Definitely. And then we have derived facts. Those are calculated from other facts. A good example is gross profit, that's sales minus the cost.
You're creating brand new information from existing data. That's pretty neat.
It is. Now, let's get a bit technical and talk about surrogate keys.
Okay, bring on the tech talk. What are surrogate keys?
These are like meaningless integer ideas that we use instead of the natural keys from the operational systems.
Wait, so those product codes and transaction numbers we were talking about, those are natural keys. But we don't use those in the data warehouse.
Often we don't. We use surrogate keys instead.
Okay, I'm sensing another best practice here. Why are these surrogate keys so important?
They might seem like a small detail, but they can really improve the efficiency and the reliability of your data warehouse. For one thing, they protect you from any changes that might happen in the operational systems.
So if a product code gets changed in the system, our data warehouse won't freak out.
Exactly. It prevents those changes from messing with your historical data.
I like it. What other benefits do they offer?
They make it a lot easier to integrate data from different sources. Like imagine you have sales data coming from your online store, your physical stores, maybe even from third-party marketplaces.
And each system probably has its own way of identifying stuff, right? Products and customers and all that.
Right, exactly. But with surrogate keys, you can create a common language for all that data. You just use a lookup table to link everything together.
So it's like having a universal translator for all your data. That's awesome.
And surrogate keys can improve performance too because they're smaller and simpler than those long natural keys. That means faster queries.
Surrogate keys, the unsung heroes of data warehousing. It's fascinating how these small details can have such a big impact.
Absolutely. And speaking of details, let's talk about some common pitfalls to avoid when you're designing a data warehouse. One of the biggest ones is something called snowflaking. That's when you overnormalize those dimension tables.
Overnormalize? Okay, back up a second. What does that even mean?
It means you're breaking those dimension tables down into too many smaller tables. It might seem like a good idea, but it can actually make things more complex and slow down those queries.
So it's a case of too much of a good thing.
Exactly. Remember, our goal is to make this easy to use and efficient. And snowflaking can really get in the way of that.
Okay, so keep those dimension tables relatively simple. Noted. What other pitfalls should we be on the lookout for?
Another big one is those centipede fact tables. Those are the ones with way too many dimensions directly attached to them.
Oh yeah, those sound scary.
They are. You want to avoid those at all costs.
So remind me, how do we prevent those from happening?
The key is to spot when you have multiple dimensions that are actually correlated. Those should be combined.
Can you give me an example?
Let's say you have separate dimensions for the brand, category, and department, like Coca-Cola, beverages, and grocery.
Okay, yeah, those are all related.
Right, they're all part of that product hierarchy. Instead of 3 separate dimensions, you'd combine those into a single product hierarchy dimension.
That keeps things nice and tiny.
And it helps with performance, too.
I'm definitely getting the sense that designing a data warehouse is a bit of an art form. It's not just about the technical stuff. You need to think about how people are actually going to use it.
I agree. It's about making it both powerful and user-friendly.
All right, let's take a pause here for now. We've covered a lot of ground, from the building blocks of dimensional modeling to some of those common pitfalls, but I'm sure there's more to uncover in this retail sales chapter.
Oh, definitely. We've only just scratched the surface.
We'll be back soon to dive even deeper into the world of retail sales data warehousing. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into retail data warehousing. Ready for more?
Absolutely. We've laid the groundwork, talk about dimensional modeling and all that.
Right, all those key concepts. So let's get a bit more practical now and talk about some real-world scenarios. You know, retail data, it's always changing.
Sounds good. Let's get down to business.
Okay, so imagine you're running I don't know, a grocery store chain, and you decide to rebrand one of your popular product lines. New packaging, maybe a new logo, the whole works.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. Shiny new packaging on those shelves.
But here's the thing, how do you track the performance of that rebranded product in your data warehouse? You don't want to just erase the old info, right? Because then you lose all that valuable historical data.
Right, you wouldn't be able to see if the rebranding actually made a difference.
Exactly. That's where the whole idea of slowly changing dimensions comes in. It's basically a way to handle changes to those dimensions over time without losing that historical context.
So how do we do that? Do we, like, create a whole new product dimension every time something changes?
Not quite. There are a few ways to handle it, but the most common one is what we call type 2. It's all about creating new dimension rows to reflect the changes while keeping those old rows around.
So we're basically creating a historical record of every change. Clever.
Yeah, exactly. So each dimension row has a surrogate key, like we talked about before, and each change creates a new row with a new key. Then the fact table just links to the right dimension row based on the date of the sale.
I'm following you. So if the product rebranding happened, say, in June, any sales after that would link to the new row with the updated product info. But sales before June would still point to the original row.
You got it. That way, you can analyze those trends accurately. Did sales increase after the rebranding? Did certain customers respond better to the new look?
It's like having a time machine for your data. You can go back and see how things evolve.
Exactly. But you're right. This can make those dimension tables pretty big, especially if you have a lot of changes.
Yeah, that was my next thought.
It can, but disk space is pretty cheap these days. And honestly, the benefits of having that accuracy, it outweighs the cost.
True, true. Now, the book also talks about these things called out triggers. What are those all about?
Think of those as like mini dimensions that branch off of one of the main dimensions. It's a way to add more info without cluttering up the fact table with tons of keys.
Okay, so it's like adding a sidecar to a motorcycle, extra space for your stuff. Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's stick with our grocery store. Let's say you want to track the date each product was first introduced. You could just add a date attribute to the product dimension, right?
Yeah, that seems logical.
But what if you also want to analyze sales based on, say, the day of the week that product was launched, or what fiscal period it falls into, maybe even holidays related to that date?
Ah, I see where you're going with this. If we add all that to the main product dimension, it's going to get messy fast.
Right, that's where an outrigger comes in handy. You create a separate product introduction date dimension with all those extra date-related attributes.
And then you link that outrigger table to the main product dimension using a surrogate key. So the main table stays clean, and we have a dedicated spot for all that extra date info.
You got it. It's a balancing act. We want performance, but we also want clarity and efficiency. Outriggers can be helpful, but don't overuse them.
Right. Speaking of things we don't want to overuse, let's talk about those centipede tables again. The ones with way too many dimensions.
Oh yeah, we want to avoid those at all costs.
So how do we keep our fact tables from turning into centipedes?
You have to be able to spot those correlated dimensions. If multiple dimensions are really describing the same thing, they should be combined.
Give me an example.
Okay, let's say you have separate dimensions for the brand, category, and department, like Coca-Cola, beverages, and grocery.
Right, those are all related to the product.
Exactly. So instead of 3 separate dimensions, you'd combine them into a single product hierarchy dimension.
Ah, that's much cleaner. And probably easier to work with, too.
Absolutely. Plus, it improves performance because you're doing fewer joins to get the data you need.
So it's a win-win. Now let's zoom out for a second. Why is all of this so important? What's the real value of a well-designed data warehouse?
It's all about the insights. By analyzing all that data, retailers can answer those critical questions about their business. Which products are doing well, which stores are performing best, are those promotions actually working? You can even see patterns in your customer data.
It's like having a crystal ball that shows you all the hidden trends in your business. That's powerful stuff.
And remember, this is just the beginning. Data warehousing is always evolving with new technologies and new techniques.
So it's an ongoing journey, not just a destination. You're always learning and improving, finding those hidden gems in the data.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the people involved in actually building and maintaining these systems.
Okay, so it's not just about the technology, it's about the humans behind it all.
Absolutely. To build a successful data warehouse, you need a team with a variety of skills. You need people who can design the model, people who can extract and load the data, people who can keep the system running smoothly, and then you need the business analysts who understand what the users actually need.
It's like an orchestra. Everyone plays a critical part.
And you need a conductor. Strong leadership is key to make sure everyone is working together towards the same goal.
And let's not forget about the audience, the business users who are actually going to use this data to make decisions.
Right. They need to be involved from the beginning to make sure their needs are being met.
So it's a team effort, a collaboration between all these different groups of people.
And it extends beyond the internal team, too. You also need to think about your vendors and technology partners, the people who provide the data and the
It's
infrastructure.
a whole ecosystem.
It is, but when it all works together, a well-designed data warehouse can be a game changer for any retailer.
We've covered a lot of this part. We talked about those slowly changing dimensions, those outriggers, and the importance of teamwork.
Exactly. In the next part, we'll see how all of this translates into real business value. We'll look at some specific examples of how retail data warehousing can help with things like promotion analysis, inventory management, and understanding your customer segments.
Welcome back, data detectives. We've been on quite a journey, through this world of retail data warehousing.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? We've looked at dimensional modeling, slowly changing dimensions, even those tricky centipede tables.
Exactly. But now it's time to see how it all comes together, how we can actually use this data to make better decisions.
Right, let's see how it translates into real business value.
Okay, so let's go back to our grocery store example. We were talking about promotions earlier. How can a data warehouse help us analyze those?
Oh, it can be incredibly powerful for that. You can finally see which promotions are actually working and which ones are just, taking up space.
Right, we can move beyond those gut feelings and actually see the data.
Exactly. Like, imagine you find out that a promotion that seems really successful is actually cannibalizing sales from another product that has a higher profit margin.
Oh, that would be a costly mistake. It's like hidden costs you wouldn't even know about without the data.
Exactly. And it's not just about the sales numbers either. You can also see how different customer segments respond to those promotions.
Oh, interesting. So you could see if a promotion is bringing in new customers or just encouraging existing customers to buy more.
Exactly. Are your discount shoppers stocking up during the sale, or are you attracting new customers who haven't tried your products before?
Wow, so you can really tailor those promotions based on individual customer behavior. That's amazing. What other areas of the business can we use this data for?
Inventory management is a big one.
Inventory management. I wouldn't have thought of that right away.
Yeah, it might not be the most exciting topic, but it's super important for retailers, especially now, with everyone expecting to find what they want when they want it, whether it's in the store, online, through a mobile app.
Right, that whole omni-channel experience. So how can a data warehouse help with that?
Imagine being able to see in real time which products are selling like hotcakes, which ones are just sitting there, which ones are running low. That's the kind of visibility you get with a data warehouse.
That would be so helpful. You could optimize those stock levels, reduce waste, and hopefully avoid those out-of-stock situations that everyone hates.
Exactly. And if you have the right analytics tools, you can even start forecasting demand. Predict seasonal trends, see which products are moving slowly and maybe need a price adjustment.
Wow, so you can really fine-tune that whole supply chain. It's like having a perfectly synchronized orchestra.
I love that analogy. But remember, all of this relies on having good data. Data quality is absolutely crucial.
Right, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. You need to have clean, consistent data coming in from all your different systems, point of sale, inventory databases. And then you need to have those processes in place to clean and validate the data before it goes into the data warehouse.
So it's not just about collecting the data, it's about making sure it's actually good data.
Right. It's like prepping ingredients for a meal. You wouldn't use wilted lettuce or rotten tomatoes, right?
Exactly. So it sounds like data quality is everyone's responsibility.
It is, from the people entering the data at the checkout to the data scientists building those complex models. And this brings us to one final point, the importance of continuous improvement. A data warehouse is not something you just build and then forget about.
Right, it's not a one and done kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a living, breathing system. You're constantly adding new data, refining the model, developing new analytics.
So you're always learning and evolving, trying to stay ahead of the curve.
The key is to really embrace that data-driven culture. Make sure everyone in the organization sees the data warehouse as a valuable asset, not just a technical thing.
It's about empowering people to use data to make those informed decisions, from the CEO all the way down to the store manager.
Exactly. So to wrap things up, this has been a fascinating deep dive into retail data warehousing. We've explored the fundamentals, looked at some real-world applications, and seen how powerful this can be for businesses.
Yeah, it's been a great journey. And for our listeners, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you had access to a retail data warehouse, what questions would you ask? What insights would you be looking for? The possibilities are truly endless.
They are. So keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep diving deep into the data. Until next time.